We're now on the record. This is the Kentucky Public Service Commission. My name is Michael Schmidt. I'm chairman of the commission. Vice Chairman Robert Cicero and Commissioner Tlina Matthews are not here this morning. Ms. Matthews has recused herself from all cases involving investigations and hearings concerning the alleged violations of the Underground Facility Damage Prevention Act. Commissioner Cicero, however, is watching the proceeding, and he will be participating ultimately in the decision or decisions that are made today. Today's hearings are for the purpose of taking evidence in what looks like 5 cases which have been brought by the Public Service Commission Division of Inspections. So right at this time, I will call the docket of the cases that, at least I'm advised, are to be heard this morning. And when I do, I would ask that anyone associated with any of the parties please stand or identify yourself so we can make sure who's here and that everybody's ready to proceed. The first case in numerical, I guess, order is 2019-00160. Jonathan Hilton. Is Mr. Hilton here? Okay. Mr. Hilton, I wanted to ask, have you been served? Did you get a copy of the initiating order which started this proceeding? You did not?
I got this in the mail, I don't know where it is.
Okay, you got the, how did you, that's the, I guess, the demand letter that was made. Do you know, how did you know there was a hearing this morning?
Yeah, I called.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let me go through the docket and then we can talk about how to proceed with you, because I'm not, at this point, apparently a complaint has been filed or an order against you, but you haven't apparently received it. So then we need to talk about how to deal with that in a minute. So if you'll have a seat, we'll get you right off the bat. Number 2. 2019-00161, Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating, LLC.
Yes, my name's Lonnie Williams. I'm with Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating.
Okay. Mr. Williams, do you have an attorney? Now, here's the issue. Individuals can have an attorney or not have an attorney. It isn't required. But a business entity such as a corporation or a legal liability company, in order to advocate for a position, because the corporation or the LLC is a separate, legally it's separate from you. It's not the same, it's hard, it's a fiction, but legally it's a separate person. And there is a statute in Kentucky that says that under such circumstances, a person can only, or a company can only be represented by somebody who has a license to practice law in Kentucky. So if you advocated for the company as a separate entity, you would be guilty of practicing law without a license. And there is a regulation that would permit or would prohibit anyone from practicing a case or advocating on behalf of a company, even though it's your company, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You incorporate or have an LLC to protect you from personal liability and for perhaps other reasons. Now, the issue is this. I guess if you wanted, there's probably 2 options. One, I would, if you choose, agree to, we would reschedule this for a hearing in whatever the next group is, late October or November, and give you an opportunity if you wanted to come with counsel. Or if you wanted to move forward, I guess Mr. Park could call you or I could call you and ask you questions. I guess you could tell the story as a witness, but you wouldn't be able to ask any questions of any of whoever testifies, if anyone at all, on behalf of the Division of Inspection.
Well, I'd like to, get it over with. I'd like to tell you what happened to
Oh, okay. Well, then we can do that. Mr. Park, I guess what I'd ask you, if you had any problem with calling Mr. Williams as a witness. The only difference is, Mr. Williams, you wouldn't be able to ask questions of, I don't know who the inspector is, but if an inspector is to testify, you wouldn't be able to cross-examine.
Yeah, I've never told my part of the story to nobody.
Okay, well then we'll move ahead that and you
Let's
can,
do that.
and on behalf, you can be a witness as opposed to an advocate or a lawyer.
Okay, that'll be
Okay,
fine.
all right, please have a seat, and we'll get to you second.
Thank you very much.
All right, third, 2019-00165, Michael Cullum. Yes, Mr. Cullum. Okay, are you here and ready to go?
Yep.
All right, okay, thank you. You don't have a lawyer, you're not required to have one, so you can tell your story, and you can cross-examine a witness or witnesses if any other testify. Okay, thank you. 4 is 2019-00279, Clear Choice Facility Maintenance LLC. Is anyone here on behalf of Clear Choice? Well, okay, we'll call them later as we get through the others, maybe they're just late. 2019-00299, Basham Construction and Rental Company, Inc. Yes,
Chris
sir.
Powell, Basham Construction.
Okay. Now, Mr. Basham, the same thing holds true for you about Williams Excavating LLC. I assume that you do not have a license to practice law, correct? And you do not have a lawyer who's with you here this morning. So you'll have an option, all right, of either being a witness and telling what you know, but not advocating for your company in the sense of making a closing statement or cross-examining whatever witness, if any, Mr. Park puts on for the Division of Inspection. Or if you say, well, I probably need to get somebody, I'd like to have an attorney here, then I would continue this and reschedule it for a month or so to give you an opportunity to come in with an attorney. And I understand the costs involved. There's, I guess, a balancing process here, perhaps for Basham to make. But I can't do anything about the law. I just can't let you practice law. And I know it sounds unusual, but since the corporation is a separate legal entity from you and your family, who may own all of the stock in it, it would be a violation of a criminal statute if I allowed you to do it. I would be required as an attorney myself to report you to the Bar Association and to the county attorney. And so I don't want to do that, right? Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Right now?
You can, you sure can.
Yeah, that's what I was, I guess, unlike, I guess, Mr. Wilson here, we have spoken with, I spoke with the PSC about what happened, which is
All right.
what has led us to this point. And
No, you can speak with them, but now we're at the hearing.
Yeah.
And I got a different, there's nothing that I can do about it.
yeah,
So go ahead.
I'm unfamiliar with this whole process, and this is the first one we've ever been to, so I guess coming into this, I thought I was gonna come in here alone, we were gonna be in a room
Right.
speaking, I didn't realize it was gonna be, is this a court proceeding?
This is an official administrative proceeding. You're now, everything you say is being broadcast over the internet. And this is a video record that is being made in this case and in others. And Ms. Sacre here is basically doing a log of sort of an outline of what everybody says that will be available and can be synced in with the video. So yeah, this is an official proceeding. It's not a court, but it's an administrative hearing proceeding.
Okay.
It's not like sitting around at a table and trying to talk it out.
Yeah, trying to work things out, I understand, I guess that, like you have already brought up though, is, yeah, I mean, we do have I guess a decision to make there, because, I mean, we are looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, at a $4,000 fine, or, I mean.
I don't know, is this the first alleged, or it's more than one, is that?
We've already paid for, like,
Okay,
for.
well, I'll tell you what, if you need some time to think about it, this is the last case on the docket, so you could either make a decision now or wait till your case is called, or we'll have 4 others presumably in between, or 3, depending on what Mr. Hilton wants to do. And in between, then you can say, I made a decision, this is what we'll do, and I'll give you whatever time that you need.
Am I allowed to walk outside and make a
Yes,
call
you
to my
certainly,
boss?
yeah, you are,
Okay.
you are. So, in any event, why don't we will then start with Mr. Williams in a minute, and you may walk out, make any decision, and come back in, and at any time, up to and including the time your case is called, which will be last, maybe around noon, you can make that decision.
But I would be able to ask questions then of you just about, I mean, I'm not
You
gonna
can,
get
you
some
can,
notification.
you and I can talk about what the limits that would be placed upon of what you could say and do if you went forward, if the company went forward without an attorney.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything criminally.
No, I know that, and what our interest here too is in protecting you and in seeing that the company gets a fair shake. But how you proceed's up to you. I can't, make that decision.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I'm gonna step out
Okay,
and make
sure.
a phone call then.
All right, go right ahead. Take your time. All right. Now, I guess the next order of business would be to call the first case, and then I guess that would be Mr. Hilton, Jonathan Hilton, and then we can discuss how to proceed. And Mr. Hilton, why don't you come forward? We'll call 2019-00160, Jonathan Hilton.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We need to put that on a separate video.
Yes, I guess what do we need to do? Go off the record and come back on?
Yes, sir.
So we will at this time declare a recess for 1 minute, at which time we'll go on a different video, Mr. Hilton, and then we'll call your case and we can discuss what to do. Okay. We are now back on the record, and the first case to be called this morning is 2019-00160, Mr. Jonathan Hilton. Mr. Hilton, will you please come up and take a seat here at behind the bar? For the record, will you please state your name and address?
Jonathan Hilton, 710 Fraley Road, Salt Lake, Kentucky.
Mr. Hilton, I notice you have someone with you today. Can
Yeah.
you tell us who you have with you?
I'm James Shively. He has no clue what's going on. He left.
Okay. All right. Are you the witness? Were you there at the time and know what happened? Okay. Now, Mr. Hilton, previously when we came in and called the docket before this case started, I asked you if you had been served with process or with an initiating order, and that order is what would set the hearing for today, and which set out or alleged that you violated the act, the Underground Facility Damage Prevention Act, I guess by,
I got a pipeline damage investigation for it.
right, you got a letter,
Yeah, I
right?
got a letter.
Right, and then I think you told me before we started, or when we called the docket, when I asked, you indicated you hadn't been served, but you checked on the website or something and you saw it was set for a hearing.
I called. And,
Oh, you called?
Yes, I
Right,
said
now,
it today.
here's the option. Officially, you haven't been served. So you've come down here, now you can have your day before the commission and do it today, but to do that, you would have in effect waived your right to have the order served on you. So if you can say, well, if that's the case, I'm going home. At some point in time, you will be served and you'll have to come back and make that decision, probably. I mean, I suppose you can move to Dayton or something, and Dayton, Ohio, might not. But absent something like that, the odds are you'll probably get served at some point. So also, you're not required to have an attorney, as we discussed, because you're being charged as a person. But you have a right to have an attorney if you wanted to have one, and I wouldn't offer that to anybody else, but they've all been served, and in the serving paper, it says that. So you've had a moment or two to think about it. including before we started here this morning, with your case. How do you want to proceed?
Can we just go on, you know?
Okay, all right. The burden of proof of both that there's been a violation and any damages lies with the Division of Inspections, not with you.
Right.
So, I mean, they have to prove it, and then you can, your testimony would be whatever it is in terms of it didn't violate the act, or there's some reason that the fine or whatever might be applicable would be mitigated or shouldn't be imposed, okay? Now, you can ask questions of the inspector, whoever that may be. You can put on a witness, you can advocate for your position, you know, so you can be a lawyer for yourself.
All right.
Okay. All right, Mr. Park, would you please, for the benefit of the record, introduce yourself, who you represent, and what witness or witnesses you may have here this morning?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Park. I'm a staff attorney with the Public Service Commission of Kentucky, and with me is Tina Frederick, also staff attorney with the commission. Staff intends to call John Lyons as a witness today.
Okay. All right, if you're ready to proceed, Mr. Park, please call your first witness.
Division of Inspections calls John Lyons.
Mr. Lyons, would you please take the stand? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Mr. Park?
Yes, good morning. Please state your name for the record.
John Lyons.
And what is your current employment and position?
I am the Deputy Executive Director for the Kentucky Public Service Commission, also serving as Acting Director for the Division of Inspections.
In your position as Deputy Executive Director and Director of Division of Inspections, what is your role in administering the Commission's program to enforce the Underground Facilities Damage Prevention Act?
The program being a part of the Division of Inspections is my primary oversight. I supervise the inspectors and investigators of the program.
As part of your duties to supervise inspectors as part of the damage prevention program, do you review the individual investigations of pipeline damage by employees under your supervision?
Yes, I do.
And do you review their findings before the findings are finalized?
Yes, I do.
Are you familiar with a gas pipeline excavation damage incident that occurred on August 9, 2018 at 94, excuse me, let me, that's incorrect, 340 Main Street at Salt Lick, Kentucky?
The incident location, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
I think that was at 94 Fraley Road.
That's correct.
Oh, that is correct. That's
Yes.
the.
Yes, I am familiar with that incident, yes.
And what did this incident involve? Whose operator's line was damaged?
This was a Delta Natural Gas line, and they reported the damage to us on August 13th, 2018.
And when Delta reported this incident to Division of Inspections, did Division of Inspections investigate the incident, determine if a violation of the act had occurred?
Yes, we did investigate both contacting the operator, and in this case, I believe an attempt to contact Mr. Hilton was made and was unsuccessful through several phone numbers that we had. The investigator at the time, Jason Wisman, did also contact the homeowner, Ina Johnson, who did not have any contact information for Mr. Hilton. Ultimately, after several attempts, I think it was 3 or 4 attempts at contacting various numbers, we eventually sent a demand letter to the best available address that we had at the time.
And did Mr. Weissman prepare an investigation report based upon his investigation of this incident?
Yes, he did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may. let me ask, Mr. Hill, have you seen this report? It would have been attached to the initiating order that you didn't see. Would you, please, give Mr. Hilton a copy of
Certainly.
that so he can see it? And if you need a second to, look at it before Mr. Park continues, we'll give you a chance to look at it. Basically, it's, what they found was, had happened, Mr. Hilton, so let's take a minute and let Mr. Hilton and his witness take a look at that.
That's the same thing he received.
Yeah, same thing I received.
Okay, you got that, all
Yeah,
right,
I
so
got
you
it.
have it, all right. All right, you may proceed, Mr. Park.
And are you familiar with the document that I have handed you, Mr. Lyons?
Yes, I am.
Could you please identify the document for the record?
This is the investigation report prepared by Mr. Jason Wisman
And-
that was attached to that was included with the demand letter that was sent to Mr. Hilton.
And was this investigation report prepared by Mr. Wisman under your supervision?
Yes, it was.
Would you have reviewed the report before it was finalized and issued?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Chairman, I move to admit this document as PSC Exhibit 1.
Okay. No objection, there wouldn't be any reason to it, it's admissible.
No, we don't need it.
So let it be filed, the document be filed as Exhibit 1.
And based upon the investigation, what were the findings in the investigation report regarding the cause of the incident?
As Delta reported to us on August the 13th, they had, that there was a damage to a gas line serving Ms. Johnson's property that they were made aware of through a call to 811 after the line was damaged. Apparently, allegedly Mr. Hilton was using a backhoe to try to fix a water line for Ms. Johnson, and without having first called 811 for a locate ticket, ended up hitting the line.
So Mr. Hilton did not call 811. Did the homeowner call 811?
I believe she did. She did prior to she did prior to the damage having occurred. But it's my understanding through the investigation that excavation began before Delta employees were able to get there and do the locate. And once they arrived on scene, they had discovered that the line had been cut, the gas line.
So the findings of the Division of Inspection is that although 811 had been called, the excavation work commenced before the operator had arrived at the scene and marked the location of the line.
Yes, and the operator has 2 working days to do that locate, although they were en route rather quickly on this particular situation.
Are you aware if Delta billed anyone for damage to its pipeline on this particular incident?
Delta typically does not bill, as far as I know, and they didn't in this instance that I'm aware. It was a $173 repair that Delta said it was the cost of the damage.
And your testimony is that Division of Inspections never was able to contact Mr. Hilton, and Mr. Hilton did not attend a training seminar or pay a proposed fine.
Correct. Typically, what we do is we make as many attempts as we can to contact individuals. It's not very frequent that we don't get in contact, but eventually we just send a demand letter to the best known address. In this case, we sent that on November the 15th, and actually it was just for a penalty of $1,250 without the opportunity to attend remedial training because we had not talked to Mr. Hilton, and therefore was not able to offer any reduced penalty in remedial training.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Hilton, would you like to ask any
I don't
questions?
have any way.
I have a few then that I would ask. Mr. Lyons, you or anyone with the Division of Inspections had been able to contact Mr. Hilton, would you have offered a compromise with respect to the potential penalty? Because A, he is a individual as opposed to a corporate entity, and/or because it was his first offense?
Yes, Your Honor, we always offer the first-time offender the ability to pay a reduced penalty from the $1,250 to pay $250 and attend one of our remedial trainings. We always offer that to first-time offenders.
And that wasn't offered to Mr. Hilton because you were unable to contact him, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
How many, when's the first training that the commission offers after today? Is there one in October?
There's one in November 6th, 5th, 4th, November the 4th. It's the first Monday of the month.
Now, Mr. Hilton hadn't heard of this before, but he'll be testifying here in a minute, and I will probably ask him if, after this is over, if given the opportunity to reduce any potential penalty to $250 if he attends the training, which lasts what, hour, 2 hours?
Couple hours, yes.
And where is it held?
Right here in this room.
I'll ask him if he, give him the opportunity to avail himself of the remediation of penalty which is available for first-time offenders. I assume that you would be in favor of that. That's what you would have done had you been able to contact.
Correct, Your Honor. We would have no objection. Our intent is to educate excavators and the public alike about 811 and the damages of hitting natural gas lines, particularly about calling and getting locates before you excavate. So, absolutely.
Well, one question I had is, apparently somebody knew to call, the homeowner called. Did you ever speak, did anybody speak to the homeowner?
Mr. Wisman did, but it wasn't in particular about why she called 811. Apparently, there was some knowledge to do that because she did it. But beyond that, I'm not. I can't testify.
Homeowner wasn't charged.
No.
I have nothing else. Would you like to ask any questions now at all, Mr. Hill? Nothing further?
Nothing further.
May
Yeah, I got
Mr.
one
Lyons?
question. Could I have that same thing, $250?
Yeah, that would be my call,
Okay.
and I'll offer you that
Okay.
in just a second,
All
okay? All right, you may step down, Mr. Lyons. Do you have any other witness?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Hilton, at this point, would you like to, I guess from what your witness indicated, you didn't have any particular knowledge of what happened. But would you like to take the stand and, or call your witness and ask him to tell what happened?
Yeah.
Okay. Please take the stand, sir. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. What is your name again, sir?
James Shively.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Park, do you have any questions?
Good morning, Mr. Shively. Please state your address for the record.
The accident that occurred was 94 Fraley Road. I've currently moved to 4607 Highway 60 East,
That is your current address?
Owensville. Yes, sir.
And the incident occurred at 94 Fraley Road?
Salt Lake. That's correct.
And did you previously reside at that residence?
For 3 years, we had a water line break under the ground, under the driveway, and she had called to the water company, and they said that it was in the line, and that she would have to put the line in. They wasn't responsible for it, which he had experience from a prior job, on running a backhoe, and he was just a friend we grew up with and stuff like that, and, you know, I put him on it. I called him up, see if he wanted to do it. She was paying cash. He was, unemployed at the time, so he took the job.
Who owns the property? You
Ina
refer to
Lee
as she.
Johnson.
Pardon me?
Ina Lee Johnson, she was a 83-year-old widow.
And what is your relationship to
That was-
Ms. Johnson,
That was my landlord.
landlord? And so there was a water line leak
Yeah.
on Ms. Johnson's side of the
Yeah,
meter?
she
and
had a schematic, her husband had made everything that was on the property, and the water line did not show, on the drawing that she had going to the water meter to the main road, that there was no gas line there. So we was unaware of it was actually in a separate, line, going up to the main road, but they were side by side in the same ditch, and we was unaware of the gas line. But, so she told us to go ahead because the 811 dig was for the road. We wasn't nowhere near the road. And they wouldn't tell us when we called. We were not Ina Lee Johnson, we didn't own the property. They said no, that we cannot give any information on that.
Now, who said that?
811 dig when we called.
So who called 811, Mrs. Johnson, or did you call?
After he had hit it, after we found it, you know, it was on top. It was actually less than an inch on top of the water line. We hit it, probably within 1,000 feet of the road. We hit it, punctured it, and we called Delta Gas, told them what we did. We showed them all the schematics, and they said no. They actually flagged it on down to 94 where the mobile home sat, and their flags was actually wrong. We hit it again. I hit it. He quit. He walked out when he hit it. He said, no, I don't want no more to do with this, you know, and he left. I ran it. I hit it. I was fined $1,000 for their piece of paper, same ditch.
So you hit the line the second time after Mr. Hilton did?
Yep.
And you paid a fine when
Yep.
the Division of
It was
Inspection?
$1,000 fine right there, lays the receipt, and
Let me make sure I understand the timeline. You indicated that you all called 811 after,
Ina Lee did. I went up there to her. I said, listen, because Delta had explained it, said, hey, she didn't call. And I was like, oh, okay.
but this was after the incident?
Yeah.
So you were calling to report the damage?
Yeah.
Okay.
I called Delta, and they came out and repaired the line. They gave him the fine, which he got aggravated and said, I don't want no part of this, and he had left.
Who gave him the fine, or who?
Delta told him he'd give a letter in the mail, and he gave him my address.
And have to
his
pay
name.
for the damage?
And right, and they said it was a $250 fine. He was fine with that, but he never got the letter in the mail. He just received a letter last
Yeah.
week.
Like my mom's.
Did Delta say, were you there when Delta was talking with Mr. Hilton?
Mhm.
Did they say it was a $250 fine, or was it the money that
That's-
was gonna cost to repair the line?
No, they didn't talk about any kind of damage that he would be responsible held for. They said, well, you didn't call 811, so they'll fine you $250. You'll get a letter in the mail.
Are you aware if Ms. Johnson called 811 before the work started?
She did not call. She thought 811 was if he was digging by the road. She was misunderstood. She's an 83-year-old woman that just, you know, she had schematics on everything that her husband had left for each resident on the property. There's actually a total of 5, 6 residents.
And who owns the backhoe?
It was B&B Rentals in Moorhead, Kentucky.
And who rented the backhoe?
She rented it.
She rented it.
Mhm.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions that you
No,
might?
sir.
Mr. Shively, you struck the same line sometime after Mr. Hilton left, is that correct? I mean, you didn't, when Mr. Hilton struck the line, he actually was operating the backhoe.
Mhm.
Mr. Hilton was when the line was struck,
Yeah.
correct? And the gas line was essentially almost on top of the water line in the
Yeah.
same
Within
ditch.
inches apart.
And when the line was struck with the backhoe, did it break the line and gas
Pierced
escape?
it? Yes.
And the backhoe was rented by Mrs. Johnson,
Mhm.
not by Mr. Hilton?
No.
He was just hired to operate?
Right. He was just a local, and he needed some money because he was unemployed at the time. And I called him up and said, hey, come over, I got you a little job to do.
That's a call you wish you never got.
And exactly.
Let me ask, do you know, and if not, I have to ask Mr. Hilton later, Do you know how much Mr. Hilton was paid, or to be paid for this job?
$10 an hour, which he had worked 10 hours, and she paid him $100 cash.
After the line was struck, he left, is that correct? And that's when you took over?
I took
And hit
over.
the line again
Within
sometime
300
later?
feet, within 300 feet, they met again, which their flags was right to that point where we hit it. And how we missed it that far, it was within probably 1,200 feet from the road when it was struck.
And when you struck it the next time,
It was across the
Delta
road.
had then marked the line, is
Yeah,
that
they
correct?
had it marked. They had it marked, and it was supposed to have been over here. The line was still right with the water line. And we were following.
So Delta's marking was wrong, is that
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly. The flags were wrong, and it still is actually where it's supposed to be. Their flags are wrong when they go out there to mark it. Because where I hit it at, their flag is to the right.
Well, when after you struck the line, were you contacted by an investigator from
I was
Division of
not called. I
Inspection?
gave my phone number. My correct address was 94. I was at that residence over a year later. I didn't receive that fine in the mail for probably 6 months. But it was mailed in 3 days after I had got it.
But nobody called and talked to you and asked about what happened or anything like that?
No, sir, didn't receive any kind of information on it, just that letter that's right there.
And if they had have called, would you have told them what you've said here, that
Yes, sir.
that the line, Delta marked the line in the wrong location?
Yes, sir. I actually showed
Did you have an
the,
opportunity to tell Delta that they
Yes,
had
he
marked
was-
the line in the wrong location?
yes, his flag was to the right and the ditch was open, and I showed him, I was like, your flag's right here. And you're talking 4 foot over, I'm digging a water line on the opposite side, and I'm just grazing. The water line was actually in the ditch. You could just barely see the old line right here. And we put a brand new line in all the way to the road. It was over 1,000 foot. And it was one row. There was no splices in the water line or nothing. It was a solid ditch, 1,500 feet to the driveway, to the trailer. And we put in a solid line. I didn't dig the actual water line, the old one. I was on the side of the ditch where her schematic showed. And we grazed. We actually had to hand dig it with a shovel to get to it because we pierced it when the bucket hit it. And it wasn't actually uncovered. It was pierced by the bucket on the side of the ditch. But their flag was 4 foot from our ditch.
When Delta, I guess you notified, or Ms. Johnson, somebody notified Delta of this second break that you were involved in. And when Delta came out, did they get your information, your name and phone number and address, and you gave them all that?
All he did was have a clipboard, and he wrote down I gave him my driver's license, he put it on his clipboard, he copied it, and he said, you'll get a letter in the mail, they'll probably fine you again. He said, you're talking over $1,000, he said, whatever they decide to do, and that was the end of the conversation.
I don't have any further questions. Do you have anything, Mr. Park?
Just with respect to the second incident, you indicated that Delta told you you would be subject to a fine. Did Delta say, well, it's gonna cost us X amount of money to repair this line? Do you
No.
owe us that?
He put a coupling into the same line. They did not bring any equipment over. It was one guy. He put a splice in the line where Jonathan had hit it. 300 feet later, I waited 2 days when they had flagged everything. Windstream and Delta, I think, was actually the only two that could come out and flag everything. 300 feet later is where I hit it, closer to the house. And the only thing that they had done was give him a fine. He left, and then I finished it.
But they didn't bill you,
No.
they didn't ask you to pay them,
They put a coupling where Jonathan hit it,
Right.
they put a coupling where I hit it.
so they didn't do a lot of work to it.
Right.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything you'd like to add?
No,
Mr.
sir.
Hill? Okay, you may step down.
Thank you.
Mr. Hill, would you mind taking, I'd like to ask, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I'd like to ask you a couple questions if you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hilton, at the time of this incident, were you self-employed, unemployed, or what was the situation?
I was unemployed.
I know I guess the order here, it says Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating LLC. Is that correct?
No.
All right, according to this complaint, Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating LLC is a limited liability company. Have you incorporated or have gone through the Secretary of State's office to have this business incorporated, a digging or excavating business?
Your Honor, Lonnie Williams is not Mr. Hilton's
Oh,
company.
I'm sorry, I've got the wrong, all right, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry. All right, so you were, all right, you weren't a professional excavator.
Right.
What were you employed at? What did you do? You were unemployed, what had you done before?
Lyman,
A lineman?
yeah.
For who?
Hinkle McCoy, Miss Brown,
All right.
fiber optic.
All right, since this incident, have you gotten employment? Have you become reemployed?
No.
So you were hired, basically contacted by Mr. Shively, who knew you to come in and operate this backhoe that Ms. Johnson had rented,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yeah.
At the time, were you familiar with the so-called dig law that required calling before you dug anywhere in order to try to prevent damage to an underground gas line?
I was going by what she was telling me. She said it wasn't there. You know,
Did she have a schematic? Did you see it?
yeah,
Didn't show a gas line on it?
no.
If offered the opportunity for a reduced civil penalty in exchange for coming to the Public Service Commission training on November 4th, 2019, would you do that?
Yeah.
He has trouble with transportation at this time. Is there any way that he could just get by with a fine?
You don't have a car
No.
available or a
No.
truck or any
No.
kind of,
He's the one brought me today. Just a poor old back to the hillbilly trying to make a living.
do you live in Bath County? Is that-
Yes, sir. And the reason they couldn't get a hold of me is I don't have a phone, I don't have a phone, no cell phone or nothing.
You have any questions, Mr. Parr?
I do not, Your Honor.
You may step down, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
he has a little bit of trouble finding a job because of the lack of a high school diploma. The transportation issue is because his insurance run out, because of lack of employment, his situation right now. If he could get with the fine with 30-day, payment plan or something like that, I can help him out with the fine. I assure you that he won't be out of backhoe, and he can assure you that he does not want to run one again.
Mr.
That was a one-time accident.
Mr. Park, do you have any evidence or any reason to believe that anything that Mr. Hilton and Mr. Shively said is not true?
I do not, Your Honor.
I'll tell you, you got the deal of the day, because I'm going to dismiss this case against you under the facts that have been presented. So an order will ultimately be entered, and so the cost to you has been, to Mr. Shively, has been bringing you in here today. This case is hereby dismissed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're off the record, right? Okay. All right, we're ready. We're now back on the record. The next case to be called is case number 2019-00161, Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating LLC. Okay, Mr. Williams, please step forward. Have a seat. I know, Mr. Williams, I guess this action is brought against your company, and I assume Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating LLC is a limited liability company, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And prior, when we called the docket earlier this morning, I advised you that basically you would be unable to represent yourself, the company, because that would require an attorney, because the company and you, although you may own all of it, are legally separate entities, correct?
Yes.
And I also advised you that I would give you the opportunity to obtain an attorney for the company if you wanted to, by continuing this hearing or rescheduling it for next month or whenever the next hearings would be. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And have you made a decision as to whether you want to go forward
Yes, I want to.
as a witness as opposed to being
Yes.
somebody who can advocate for the company's position?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. All right, with that understanding, Mr. Park, would you please identify yourself and your client for the record, and the name of the witness, if any, who will testify on behalf of the commission?
Yes, John Park, Commission Staff Attorney. With me is Tina Frederick, also Commission Staff Attorney. I'm with the Commission's Division of Inspections. Our witness here today is Mr. John Lyons.
Okay. Mr. Park, if you're ready to proceed, please call your first witness.
Division of Inspections calls John Lyons.
Mr. Lyons, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Mr. Park?
Please state your name for the record,
John Lyons.
and what is your current employment and position?
I am the Deputy Executive Director for the Kentucky Public Service Commission, also serving as the Acting Director of the Division of Inspections.
And in those positions, what is your role in administering the Commission's underground facilities damage prevention program?
I oversee and manage the program and manage the employees, that being the investigators of the program.
And in addition to your role supervising your employees and inspectors, do you also have experience investigating incidents as an inspector?
I do. I've investigated several.
Do you review investigations of pipeline damage incidents by employees under your supervision?
I do.
Do you review the findings they make after their investigation?
I do.
Do you approve staff reports before they are finalized and issued?
I do.
Are you familiar with a gas pipeline damage incident that occurred on August 20, 2018 at 1326 Keavy Road in London, Kentucky?
I am.
And what is the operator whose pipeline was damaged in this incident?
This was Delta Natural Gas.
When Delta reported this damage to the Commission, did the Division of Inspection have occasion to investigate the incident to determine if a violation of the Underground Facilities Damage Prevention Act had occurred?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Could you please identify who the Commission inspector was who investigated this incident of pipeline damage?
Mr. Jason Wisman.
And could you please describe the document that I have just handed you?
This is the pipeline damage investigation report prepared by Mr. Wisman.
Was it prepared under your direct supervision?
Yes, it was.
Would you have reviewed this report before it was finalized and issued?
Yes.
Division of Inspection moves that this document be admitted as PSC Exhibit 1.
Sustained.
Based upon Division of Inspection staff's investigation of this incident, what were the results, what were the findings that Division reached based upon the investigation?
Delta reported this as required by statute to us on August the 29th and described the incident as Williams and Son were conducting a demolition of a building and apparently debris fell on the meter riser and the meter itself, causing the service line to break below the asphalt that was in the area.
And you mentioned that this damage occurred as a result of demolition activities. Is demolition considered to be excavation under the Act?
Well, excavation and demolition are two different things, but both are required to have a dig ticket or a call to 811 prior to commencing with demolition or excavation.
Both are subject to the same requirements as far as the excavator is concerned?
Yes, sir.
As part of its investigation, did the Division of Inspection determine whether a call had been placed to the 811 call center to request a line locate?
As reported by Delta, it had not. Mr. Wisman, in his investigation, contacted Mr. Williams, attempted to on several occasions, and eventually Mr. Williams had called Mr. Wisman back and described that that a piece of the building fell on top of the pipe. Although he said the line was already broken, he agreed to the penalty offer, the reduced penalty of $250 and attendance to the remedial training. And that's what's in the report.
And did anyone attend training on behalf of Lonnie Williams and Son Demolition LLC?
No, they did not. But I would add that I believe Mr. Williams contacted the commission the day of the training and said that nobody could attend due to illness. And as standard practice, we give a second opportunity in certain cases to attend the next training. And one of our other investigators, Michael Nance, attempted to call Mr. Williams on several occasions in February of this year to schedule the next training, and we never got any response, nor was the penalty ever paid.
Are you aware of the amount of damage caused by this incident?
Only to the extent that the operator reported that it was broken underground. I assume that line had contained natural gas at the time of the damage.
It had not been abandoned at that point, though, and it
Right.
still contained a combustible level, potentially combustible level
yes.
of gas.
Which is fairly common from, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but a lot of these demolitions, the lines are still hot. And we've seen that on several occasions.
So it's best to assume that it's hot until you know otherwise.
Well, absolutely, and that's why that's why the law requires calling 811.
I have no further questions.
I can't let you ask him questions, but Mr. Lyons, were there any photographs or anything sent in?
No, Your Honor,
obtained?
there were none provided by the operator, nor did we have the opportunity or requested photographs from Mr. Williams that I'm aware of.
I guess that Mr. Williams or Williams Excavating was not the owner of the property that was being demolished, is that correct?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do we know who the owner was?
Donnie Martin. Martin's Used Cars.
Okay, I'll ask you and say, thank you. So, I guess looking at the incident report, Mr. Lyons, according to the report, Mr. Williams was using an excavator to demolish a building when debris fell on the riser and meter bar, causing the service line to break below ground, or below the service, below the blacktop, right?
That was what was reported, Your Honor, and it's probably worth noting that we have had demolition incidents where there was damage above ground, and we did not pursue a violation, but if it's underground, if there's a damage to an underground line, that's where we make the distinction, particularly on these demolition projects. And I have no evidence that Mr. Williams refuted that in conversations with Mr. Whistler.
And I know it says there were no injuries or property damage attributable to this incident. Delta employees installed a cap and retired the service line. You would install a cap in order to prevent gas from migrating to the point of the break, would that?
Correct.
I-
A lot of times, the gas company is not aware of these demolitions, particularly if there's no call to 811, they have no idea, and then they come out and do work like that to cap the line and basically take it out of service.
At this point, as far as Division of Inspection is concerned, we can ask Mr. Williams later, we don't know if this property, Martin's Used Car was an active business at the time of this damage or not, correct?
No, we do not know.
I have nothing further. Anything else?
I have nothing further.
You may step down, Mr. Lane. Mr. Park, do you have any other witness?
Division of Inspections has no further witnesses.
All right, Mr. Williams, you want to get up and let me put you under oath, and you can tell what you understand happened. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Okay, Mr. Park, I'll let you go ahead and ask.
Good morning, Mr. Williams. What is your relationship with Lonnie Williams and Son Excavating LLC?
I am the owner.
Are you the sole owner of the company?
Yes, I am.
And what is the business address of the company?
2131 Marydale Road, Marydell Road, 40741.
And how long have you been in the demolition business or providing demolition services?
I've been in the excavating business since 1982.
And as you're aware, this case involves a damage incident that occurred on August 20, 2018 at 1326 Keavy Road, London, Kentucky. Are you familiar with this location and this incident?
Yes, I am.
And if you could please, you've indicated you weren't able to tell your side of the story, if you will. Would you please tell us what happened, first of all, who you were working for, and a little bit background of the job you were hired to do?
Working for Donnie Martin's Used Cars, and this was not a demolition job. I don't know how it got turned into a demolition job. There was no digging. There's a sign fell off the interstate, fell on the building. It demolished the building, went right through the middle of it, and we had 4 cars inside the building. We was moving the cars out of the building by hand, no equipment, and the riser from the gas thing was inside the building. When the building fell, it broke the riser. The gas company come out and supposedly supposed to fix the riser and cut it off. But only thing they done, we found out later when this happened, they straightened it up, made it quit leaking. When my guys was moving the 2x4s and all the stuff off these cars, trying to get them out the door and the 2 boxes, the line started leaking, so we called the gas company.
So,
It was not a demolition job. The sign from the interstate fell on the building. We was trying to get the cars out of the building.
so you saying, gas leak was reported to Delta twice, once, after the riser was first hurt, and then again after they come
When the
back?
building fell on the sign fell on the building, they come over. They called the gas company, they came over, and they told Mr. Martin that they killed the line out. The only thing they done was straighten the line back up, it quit leaking. When my guys started moving the debris out from the floor area with 2x4s by hand off these cars, the line started leaking again.
Now, that debris that was on the cars you referred to, was that there because of the
sign
The
fell
sign
on the
falling.
building.
Is that building still there?
Yes, the building was put back up and the riser was taken out of the building and put out on the parking lot. And it wasn't broke below ground, it was broke above ground, where the meter went on the pipe. It didn't break it down in the ground.
What can you tell us about the sign falling? Was that, how?
That was from a wind. The wind fell, there was a big billboard sign, it fell right across the middle of the building. And we had 4 cars inside that building that sign had fell on, and they was expensive cars too, and that had to be done by hand, the work.
Did the sign fall while you all were out there on
No.
working on so it had
About
fallen?
a couple days before we got there,
Okay. And when was that, the first gas leak reported? Was that before
when
you
the
all,
sign fell on the building.
before you all got on site?
Yeah.
Okay. So you all didn't get involved until you think the first damage had occurred from the sign falling and Delta had repaired it, and
They
then
never repaired it, they just straightened it up,
they
made it
straightened
quit
it up,
leaking.
right? So
They were
you,
supposed to killed it out because the building had failed, but, they told Mr. Martin that the gas had been killed out and, everything was fine, safe to go in there to start getting these cars out of the building. But when my guys started moving 2x4s and we started trying to get to those cars, the line started leaking again, so I called and told them.
do you know if when your guys were moving the stuff off the cars, if anything fell on the riser, or why do you think it started leaking again?
Well, I mean, it was just 2x4s piled up around the pipe, and when they started moving it out by hand, trying to get to it where we could get into the cars, we had 2 boxes, we had cars, everything the man owned was in that building with stuff on top of it. And I mean, these cars are $60,000 and $80,000 cars.
Were you contacted by anyone from the Division of Inspections about this incident?
After the breakage,
Yes.
yeah, I was in the hospital when somebody called me, wanting me to attend class or pay a $250 fine.
And did you agree to do that?
Yes, I did.
And did you attend the training?
No, I was in and out of the hospital a couple times, and I got thinking about it, and I said, I think nobody never would listen to me about this situation.
Did you also talk to Michael Nance?
Yes, I did.
And were you given a second opportunity to attend training?
No, I didn't talk to him the second time. I talked to him one time, I was in the hospital, and he told me that if I wanted to pay $250 and attend class, I could. So I was in and out of the hospital a couple times after that, and I don't know if he ever tried to call me back or not, but I just think, I said, well, I just need to talk to somebody, and try to tell my side of the story, because I don't think my company was at fault for this gas line breakage because the sign what broke the building. And really, the gas company should have killed that line out when that building fell on, that gas line. He told the owner, the property owner, he did kill it out, but they never. And the guy, when he come back out, when the gas line was leaking, he said, we was gonna come out and dig the parking lot up and cut it off, but we never got back around to it. I said, well, it's gotta be done now, so.
Do you recall who you talked to with Delta?
No, I don't.
Now, after you called and said you couldn't attend the training, do you recall if you were given another opportunity to attend a later?
I didn't talk to nobody after that. He just gave me a date and how much to pay. But he may have called, left a message or something, I don't know for sure, but I never did talk to nobody after that.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Williams, were you there when the line started leaking again?
Yes, I was.
Now, at the time that, you say a sign fell off, a sign was on the interstate or near the, was that a sign advertising?
Billboard
a
sign,
used
yeah.
car
Yeah.
lot or something?
No,
else?
it was just one on the interstate there. I don't know what was on it, but this thing was 30, 40 foot high.
So
Big,
it-
massive sign.
It wasn't a Martin sign, it was a sign, just a billboard company. and
Yeah.
Somebody could rent it.
Yeah.
And that's what fell
On the building,
on the building
yeah.
and went through or across the roof, damaged the roof.
It went straight through the middle of the building.
And the
Landed in the
riser
parking lot.
and the meter were on the inside of the building.
Inside the building. And it was about 3 foot off the ground, the riser, what we call a riser. And, it wasn't broke down in the ground, it was broke up on top.
Now, so, and what was, your business, your company was hired by Mr. Martin to do what?
To get the cars out of the building and get his 2 boxes and his stuff, everything he owned was in there.
So your job wasn't to destroy or wreck the building?
No,
it was
sir.
To get the cars out?
Get the cars out where they could put the building back up, because the building was put back up the same week it came down.
So in the process of getting the cars out, you were present and you had presumably, was anybody else? You had other employees?
Yes,
or-
my son, he was with me.
You and your son, and so what were you, when the gas leak started again, what you told us, what were you all doing?
Taking 2x4s and sweeping up and cleaning up where we could get the cars out of the building.
Were you around or moving any debris or objects around the riser or the meter or the gas line at the time it started leaking again?
No, sir.
Were you using any kind of mechanical equipment inside the building?
No, not at the time of breakage. Or when the line started leaking. It was all handwork.
Had you used mechanical device or equipment inside the building prior to the time that the line started to leak?
No.
When did the gas company Delta ultimately come out and make a repair or a fix before you completed the work you were hired to do?
I'd repeat that, sir.
Did Delta, I guess somebody said that Delta Gas came out and ultimately repaired or made some changes in the location or something of the riser or the gas line or the meter, which fixed the problem. And what my question was, when Delta ultimately did whatever it did to fix this problem, had you completed your work for Martin, or were you still working there
I
when
was still
Delta
working
came
there.
in to fix the line?
Yeah, I was still working there.
And did you see what they did to make a fix of the problem there caused by the leaking line?
Well, the line was bent over the first time when the sign fell, and they straightened it back up, which was a metal pipe. It quit leaking.
You saw that?
No, he told me that when he come back over there. He said he bent it over and they pulled it back up, straightened it up.
Because that happened before you were
Before I
even
came,
came on
yeah.
and did anything.
Yeah, when the sign first fell. But when he come over there, after the line started leaking, it was leaking up towards the top of the pipe. And he just grabbed the hold of it and he bent it right backwards and forwards till it started blowing. Then he crammed a rubber plug back down in it, tightened it up with a ratchet. And he said, I'll be back in a couple of days. We'll take the backhoe, dig it up, and kill it.
Okay, and you saw him do that?
Yes, I did.
And then, were you there whenever they came with the backhoe or whatever?
No, I wasn't.
You finished by that point?
I finished the next day, and then the builders come in and put the building back up, and the gas company came out, dug the parking lot up, and re-put the riser back in there. They put it on the outside of the building this time.
in one of these cases, I guess it's not this one, was there a picture, Mr. Park, in this case, was there a photograph of this gas line?
Not in this case, Your Honor.
Okay. There was in some case, maybe it was in Mr. Backham's case, but maybe that's the one where there was a picture of the line. Okay.
But I think the gas company should have been the one that killed the line out to start with, because that was really a liability issue, even with the building fell on the building. If that thing had started leaking during the night, it could cause a bad ordeal. And when I got there on scene, he told me the gas thing had been killed out, Mr. Martin. But it hasn't. It was just straightened up temporarily, got it quit leaking.
The definition under KRS 367.4903 subsection 3 of demolition is, demolition means any operation by which a structure or mass of material is wrecked, raised, moved, or removed by means of mechanical equipment or discharge of explosives. Was any of the work you did prior to this second leak, I guess, involve use of explosive materials?
No,
Did it involve mechanized equipment?
no.
I don't have anything further, Mr. Park.
I have
anything
nothing
else?
further.
You may step down, Mr. Williams. Do you have anything else, any rebuttal or anything?
No, sir, we have no further witnesses.
Mr. Williams, normally, this is the second day of hearings, second, day that we've held hearings in these dig law cases. And the other one was, I guess, in August, maybe August 9th. And in all of those, the facts were such that we had basically, over time, developed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and debated all this. Mr. Hilton, I don't know if he set a precedent or not, but was the, I guess, first case were based upon the evidence as presented, the case was dismissed. And I think based on your testimony in this case, which is unrebutted, that the case against you ought to be dismissed as well, and an order will be entered to that effect. But this proceeding is hereby adjourned. Thank you. We're now back on the record, and the next case to be called is case number 2019-00165, Michael Cullum. Mr. Cullum here. So please step forward and have a seat behind the bar. All right, Mr. Cullum, are you ready to proceed? Have you seen the investigative material and all that, and you're ready to go? All right, the burden on this case is on the Division of Inspection, represented by Mr. Park. So you'll have an opportunity, since you're not representing anyone other than yourself. You can ask questions or make a statement and testify and whatever. Mr. Park, would you please identify yourself for the record and your witness?
Yes, John Park, Commission Staff Attorney with the Division of Inspections. With me today is Tina Frederick, also Staff Attorney with the Commission. Commission is going to call John Lyons as our witness.
All right, Mr. Lyon, will you please take the stand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Park.
Yes, please state your name and place of employment and current position for the record, please.
John Lyons, Public Service Commission, Sour Boulevard, Frankfort, Kentucky. I serve as a Deputy Executive Director for the commission, also Acting Director for the Division of Inspections.
And in your position as Deputy Executive Director and Acting Director of the Division of Inspections, what is your role in administering the Commission's damage prevention program?
I oversee the staff for the program as well as manage the daily operations of the program.
In addition to your duties as Supervisor of the Division of Inspection Employees and Inspectors, do you also investigate incidents as well?
I do. I guess I should correct it and say I have. I oversee all of them now.
Are you familiar with a gas pipeline excavation damage incident that occurred on September 1, 2018 at 500 10th Street, Dayton, Kentucky?
Yes, I am.
And did you have occasion to investigate this incident, or was it investigated by someone under your supervision?
I personally investigated this one.
I approach, Your Honor.
Yes, you may. You have a copy for Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Lyons, please describe this document for the record.
This is the pipeline damage investigation report that I prepared.
And this is the report you prepared following your investigation of this incident?
Yes.
And was this report prepared following the report from Duke Energy of damage to its pipeline?
Yes, it was.
And please, if you could describe the findings you reached in your investigation as set forth in your report.
As reported by Duke Energy, they reported that a homeowner failed to call 811 prior to digging in his yard with a bobcat and damaged his 1-inch gas service.
And as part of your investigation, did you contact Mr. Cullum?
Yes, as standard practice, we always contact all parties involved in the investigation. In this case, I did call Mr. Cullum on February 26th, explained the reason for the call, and due to the fact that gas damage had occurred.
As part of your investigation, did you determine whether a call had been made to the 811 call center to request a line locate before this work was done?
Duke did not have a locate ticket, which is standard. If a locate ticket is called into 811, they, as the operator, will receive the ticket. Upon calling Mr. Cullum, he did confirm that no 811 ticket had been called.
Was Mr. Cullum offered an opportunity to resolve this matter through attending a training seminar and payment of a reduced fine?
Yes, in part. We did something a little bit unusual in this case. Mr. Cullum was a little skeptical of my call to him, which is not unprecedented. That's happened before. People get all kinds of calls and think people are trying to scam them. Mr. Cullum, I failed to convince him who I was and the reason I was calling. So what I did in this case, and it's, to my knowledge, the only time we've done this, at his request, I sent him a demand letter with two options in it. One would be to pay the full $1,250 penalty or pay $250. I'm sorry, let me go back. He's a homeowner, so this was a $500 penalty, and with $100 penalty to be paid and $400 waived if he would attend the training, or he could pay the $500 penalty and not have to attend the training. I was I was okay with doing it in this case. I explained to Mr. Cullen, we typically try to get an agreement up front, so we're not left in limbo about which option is going to be chosen in the end. However, I did do that and sent the demand letter to Mr. Cullum on February 28th with both options in it.
Did Mr. Cullum respond to the demand letter?
No. We had him, well, let me check my notes. I want to be sure of that. No, he did not. And actually, we had him on the training roster for, just in case he chose that option, we had him on the training roster for May the 6th. He didn't show up at the training, and the penalty had never been paid. So I had one of our new investigators at the time, Mr. John Goins, call Mr. Cullum actually on May the 1st, prior to the training. And I think he relayed to Mr. Goins that he thought he could pay the penalty when he attended the training. And I think Mr. Goins relayed, no, it's past due, you need to go ahead and pay that. May 1st came and went, no penalty. Mr. Cullum did not attend. So we again called, our administrative assistant, Susanna Goodrich, called him, relayed the same thing again. And I believe we scheduled him for the next August the 5th training, because he indicated he would come to that. And again, the next training came and went. He failed to appear at the next training. Still no penalty received. And that's when we proceeded with our initiating order to have him appear at this hearing today.
So Mr. Cullum was given 2 opportunities to attend training and did not attend either of the training sessions?
Yes, and at that point, we kind of decided as a division that Mr. Cullum apparently wasn't going to comply with either one of the options, and so we initiated the hearing process.
And no payment was ever received from Mr. Cullum?
To date, no.
Staff has no further questions.
Mr. Cullum, any questions? You may cross-examine him if you like, or ask questions about the whole process or the incident in question.
I'll just wait. I'm good.
Okay. Well, let me ask Mr. Lanzone. According to the investigative report, as I understand it, Mr. Cullum basically was doing some work in his yard, or someone's yard, right? Was digging in a yard with a bobcat, damaged a 1-inch gas service line owned by Duke Energy Kentucky Inc., is that correct?
Yeah, I recall that Mr. Cullum said he was removing a retaining wall or something that was from a previous homeowner. And there was a little confusion, which is not uncommon as well. Delta, I think, had sent him a bill for the damage, or told him that he would have to pay for the damage, so he thought that's what I was calling about initially, and I explained that no, that's between him and the gas operator, and that this was a separate penalty process for violating KRS 367.
So yeah, it was Duke, not Delta, right?
Duke, I'm sorry, yes, Duke.
All right, so apparently Mr. Cullum acknowledged that he had not called 811 prior to conducting the excavation.
Back on the record.
Okay, we're back on the record. Mr. Park, do you have any other questions?
I have no further questions.
I'll give you one more bite at the apple here, Mr. Cullum. Anything you want to ask Mr. Lyons?
So you had no record of me calling and saying I wasn't gonna be able to make
the March and August, cause I did both times. Due to
You
my
definitely,
daughter,
you definitely did on the August one.
I did.
I don't have any record of you calling on the first one and having missed that one.
I did, and I knew I scheduled it too. My daughter was sick both times. My wife is in school to get her BSN, so I called this both times and rescheduled.
I know Mr. Goins called you and talked to you, and maybe, I don't
And
remember, I don't
called
remember
and
y'all
talked
calling
to
us,
the
but I know.
lady the second time
Yeah, I think
and
that
told
was,
her I wasn't sure if I was able to make it because of my wife, and I was trying to get my mom to watch my daughter. My wife's done with school now, but she was in school to get her BSN in nursing.
yeah, I
So-
certainly acknowledge that you talked to Ms. Goodrich about not being able to attend the second class.
Yeah, and I called the first time as well.
Like I said, I had Mr. Goins calling you, and whether you could initiate the call or not, I'm not sure.
That's it.
You may step down, Mr. Lyons. Any other witness, Mr. Park?
Division of Inspections has no further witnesses.
Okay, Mr. Cullum, would you like to
Yes.
take a stand and tell us about it? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. You may be seated. All right, Mr. Cullum, you may, since you're your own witness, you may tell your version of what happened and how it happened. And then Mr. Park will probably ask you some questions.
I knew I should have called. I was kind of unaware of it, but I should have called. I didn't know there was penalties they could assess if that happened, but I thought my gas meter was far away from where I was digging at, which it occurred into my house. So I have no objection there. But I know I called. I'm just here pretty much to say I just want another chance to do the class, because I know I called both times and scheduled it.
Okay, let me, maybe, Mr. Park, I don't want to preempt you, but maybe we can cut this a little short. On previous occasions, the only other time we've had hearings, we had 5 or 6 here back in August, when, especially, well, even for companies and individuals, where it's the first time, and they didn't come to the training or pay the penalty. Some did neither. Some paid the penalty but didn't get to the training. Some went to the training and didn't pay the penalty. The decision what to do after that basically is with the commission and not with the Division of Inspections any longer. But what we have done, and I think what we would do here, is the commission isn't bound by any offer or any proposed deal that the inspectors make once it gets to this position. So the potential fine or civil penalty that you face is $1,250. But there's a training scheduled here, as I understand it, on November the 4th, 2019. Is that correct? I assume, why don't you tell me what you did? How did this incident occur? You didn't call 811, correct? You may not have even known that you were supposed to call 811. All right, so what were you doing and how did you contact the gas line?
I was putting in, there was a retaining wall there, so I was taking that out, putting in a new one, and I was going to clear dirt back with a spade, and I hit the gas line. It was about that far down.
Just a few inches below the surface? Whatever the penalty that will be assessed in your case against you personally will be subject to being mitigated to a payment of $100 if you attend this training on November 4th. If you miss the training on November 4th, or by November 4th, you haven't paid the $100, it is my belief, Mr. Cicero, Commissioner Cicero, and I'll be deciding this on Monday, that your penalty will probably be substantially higher than that. because there hasn't been any, other than that mitigation, I can't recall any where the penalty was reduced below the maximum. So, I mean, you're willing, you understand that if you don't go to the hearing on, if you don't go to the training on November 4th here, or you don't pay the $100 by that date, that you risk a penalty many times higher than that, right?
Yes.
Okay. You have anything else you'd like to say? Now, let me ask this, is there some, and I know, I guess nobody may answer the phone or anything else, but since the hearing is, or the training is November 4th, is there any way that we can send Mr. Cullum a letter and then document also that we've advised him by telephone a few days or a week or something before this November? Because if he doesn't attend, he'll be subject to probably a $1,250 fine. But I want to make sure that he's, you know, that something has been given to him so he doesn't forget.
Yes, Your Honor, as standard practice before the training, we send out a reminder postcard to all registered participants, and it would be no different in this case. We'll send Mr. Cullum that reminder card, certainly.
Okay. Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, anything else you'd like to say, Mr.
I
Cullum?
do. I'm gonna show up to the thing on the 4th, but you keep saying 1,200, isn't it only 500 since I'm home?
No, that's an offer they made.
Oh, okay. All right.
The statute has a penalty of $250, plus if it's a gas line,
Gotcha.
there's an extra $1,000 on it.
Okay.
And because what they've tried to do, before it gets to a hearing stage, is offer a homeowner who's basically digging in his own yard or putting in a mailbox or something, something much less, because prior to this law taking effect on, I think, July 14th of 2018, the commission had maybe 30, 40 or more meetings with contractors and things all over the state. And we've advertised on radio. I don't know if you watch or listen to UK ball games, but we have those advertisements all over the place. But homeowners, you know, unlike contractors, are less likely to know, and especially when they're on their own property. So the inspection division makes an exception and offers a much lower penalty. Once it gets here, it's a carrot and a stick. You know, the carrot is you'll still get the chance, but if you miss, you get the stick. No, so that's that's it, and that's why there's a difference in, you're talking about $500, and once it gets here, it goes back up to $1,250. So they don't, whatever they say doesn't matter once it gets to the hearing stage. Okay?
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right, so you'll get notice, you'll get an order that basically will set out what I just told you, and then later, since you're a month or a little more than a month off for this training, you'll get a reminder. Right, Mr. Park, or Mr. Lyons? Okay.
That's correct.
All right. And encourage you to attend, because it's in your best interest, and nobody wants to exact a penalty, but we have to do it in order to, by the way, why do we have these penalties? There's a statute that basically provides that, and that's required by the federal government. Federal government required Kentucky to basically start enforcing this dig law, which has been on the books for a long time, but Kentucky had never passed the portion that required fines and enforcements for natural gas lines, and you know, you see these explosions occasionally and things, and so Kentucky risked losing basically a lot of federal money and giving up its enforcement program of gas, of basically federal gas regulations, and that would have been a lot of money unless the General Assembly passed the law the federal government required. And so that's why we're here, and that's what all this is about, okay? All right, you may step down if there's nothing further, Mr. Cullen. All right, this case is hereby adjourned. Now, the next group, we are now back on the record, and the commission calls the next case, which is case number 2019-00279, Clear Choice Facility Maintenance LLC. Is anyone present on behalf of Clear Choice Facility Maintenance LLC? This is the second time this case has been called. First being when we called the docket this morning at 9 a.m. and no one was here for Clear Choice Facility Maintenance LLC at that time. The record would indicate that the initiating order in the case, which was filed on apparently on or about August 27th, 2019, notified Clear Choice Facility Maintenance LLC that a hearing would be held on September 27th, 2019 at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in Hearing Room 1 of the Commission Offices, 211 Sauer Boulevard, Frankfort, Kentucky, for the purpose of presenting evidence and going forward in this case. There is evidence in the record apparently that Clear Choice was served with the initiating order and process. And filed in the record on September 10th, 2019 is the Executive Director's Notice of Filing, indicating that Clear Choice had been served, and it looks like someone, as I can read this, named Kelly Kitts, signed a receipt for certified mail in which the initiating order was contained on August the 29th, 2019. So Clear Choice is before the commission, but has failed to file a response of pleading to the charge contained in the order and is not here. So, Mr. Park, are you ready to proceed with your case in absentia against Clear Choice Facility Maintenance LLC?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please identify yourself, by the way.
Certainly.
I'm sorry.
My name is John Park. I'm a staff attorney with the Commission's Division of Inspections. With me today is Tina Frederick, also a staff attorney with the Commission. Staff is ready to proceed with the caveat we are having a couple of extra copies of an exhibit, but we are ready to proceed.
Okay. Please call your first witness.
Commission staff calls John Goins.
Mr. Goins, please take the stand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Mr. Park, you may ask. If you need some time, I know you said you had an exhibit being copied or something.
They should be here very soon. Please state your name and place of employment for the record.
My name is John Goins, and I work for the Public Service Commission in the Division of Inspections.
And what is your position at the Commission's Division of Inspections?
My title is Consumer Complaints Investigator 2.
And are you familiar with an excavation damage incident that occurred on September 30, 2018 at 2753 Brentwood Drive, Independence, Kentucky?
Yes.
And did that incident involve damage to a gas pipeline of Duke Energy?
Yes.
When the Division of Inspection received the report from Duke Energy of damage to its underground pipeline, did the Division of Inspection investigate the incident to determine if a violation of the Damage Prevention Act had occurred?
Yes.
And were you the inspector assigned to investigate this incident?
Yes, I was.
And did you investigate the incident?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
please describe this document for the record?
This is my written investigation report regarding this gas line incident.
And what did you do as part of your investigation of this incident?
Well, first I reviewed the information provided in the report by Duke Energy. It indicated that there was not a call to 811 and that the builder was grading the yard of a home and damaged a gas line. So I checked with the Secretary of State's office just to get some background information on the business. And on May 3rd, I called the business and left a voicemail using the business telephone number. But in the Duke Energy report, they also gave a number for the excavator, Chad Kitts. And I called that number and also left a voicemail. Then on May 10th, I called the business again and wound up speaking with a receptionist who told me I needed to speak with Kelly Kitts and that she was out and she would call me the following Monday. Then on May 14th, I called the business again and was told that Kelly was out again, but the person I spoke with said she was the one that took my call on the 10th and she would make sure that Kelly got my message. Then on May 23rd, I called again and got a voicemail and left a message that a demand letter with a $1,250 civil penalty would be coming. And if they had any additional information that they would like to provide to me, they should call me by today, that day, May 23rd. No additional information was received.
And who provided the identity of the excavator to you?
Duke Energy.
Did Duke provide Mr. Kitts' name as well as Clear Choice, or how did you determine the connection between the two?
Mr. Kitts is listed in the Duke report and his phone number.
And what is the connection between Mr. Kitts and Clear Choice facility? How did you track down Clear Choice?
Well, Clear Choice is identified as the company, the excavator.
By Duke Energy?
By Duke in
I
the
see.
report. And I also Googled the company and came up with their website, and that was the business number that I used in
And-
my attempts to contact Kelly Kitts.
Was a demand letter sent to Clear Choice facility?
Yes.
And did the commission receive a response from Clear Choice?
No.
The letter was returned.
No.
I have no further questions.
When you checked, I guess with the Secretary of State, did you see the name of Chad or Kelly Kitts? Were they involved with the ownership of that business, or do you know?
I don't recall if they were listed as a registered agent or organizer.
In terms, of course, when you called the number, when the receptionist answered the phone, did she answer as Clear Choice?
Yes, I believe she did.
And obviously, she indicated that Kelly Kitts worked there.
Yes. She informed me that Kelly was who I needed to speak with, because I told the receptionist why I was calling.
So Kelly would, based on what she said, indicated Kelly was someone apparently in authority, or in more authority than she had.
Yes.
When you do an investigation, and I saw some of these, I'll say you, when inspections does, is there ever an attempt to determine not only the name of the company, if there is a company who did the work, but the name of the individual who was actually operating the equipment at the time of the damage?
In many instances, the name that's provided in the report by the operator is, most of the time, it is the person that's on the backhoe, operating the backhoe, which is why we will also research the company. Even though a number is provided for the individual, in past instances when we've called that individual, they are just the person that operates the backhoe. They can't make any decisions regarding resolution of the statute, so we always do some research on the company to find an official business number.
does the owner of the property have any responsibility under the dig law to call?
No, the way the statute's written, it's the person doing the actual work, the excavating, that's responsible for having the dig ticket.
But the operator of the equipment has liability under the dig law, doesn't he?
They are supposed to have access to the information. I believe that the person operating the excavator, the main office of the company can call and request the dig ticket, and they are supposed to make the information available to the person running the backhoe.
And the person running the backhoe isn't supposed to dig unless they've seen the ticket, the locate ticket, correct?
Correct.
I have no further questions. Mr. Parkin?
I have no further questions.
You may sit down. Mr. Goins, do you have any additional witnesses, Mr. Parkin?
I do not, Your Honor.
All right, well, a decision will be made in this case, hopefully within the next, sometime next week. In the meantime, this case is hereby adjourned. We're now back on the record, and the last case to be considered today is case number 2019-00299, Basham Construction and Rental Company, Inc. Is anyone here on behalf of Basham Construction and Rental Company, Inc.? Yes, sir, please step forward, have a seat, identify yourself and your position with Basham, please. What is your name?
My name's Chris Powell,
Okay.
P-I-L-E, and I am a project manager, superintendent.
Okay,
For the company.
for Basham.
Yes, sir.
And we've discussed, I guess initially at the docket call at 9 a.m., the fact that Basham must have, if it intends to have someone advocate on its behalf, present testimony or cross-examine a witness or witnesses, that person must be an attorney. And I think what you indicated to me that first, you're not a licensed attorney, licensed to practice in Kentucky, correct?
I'm not.
You're not an attorney, but Basham wishes to have an attorney to represent it in this case, correct?
That is correct.
And so as a result of that request, although the initiating order pointed out that a corporation or limited liability company must have be represented by counsel, Basham didn't come here this morning with counsel, but notwithstanding that, so that Basham will have an opportunity to present its case and have counsel present to represent it, this case will be continued until November 22nd, 2019, at 9:00 a.m. here in Frankfort in the hearing room of the Public Service Commission, 211 Sauer Boulevard, Frankfort. So an order will go out, Mr. Powell, to that effect to Basham. You might want to tell them, as the order will point out, if they don't appear on November 22nd, the case will proceed in their absence. And if they do come, and they have an attorney, we'll move forward. If they don't have an attorney on 11/22/19, we're going to proceed anyway. All right?
Yes, sir.
So they deserve to have a right to have an attorney, but they need to have an attorney and be ready to go here on November 22nd. All right, is there anything else you'd like to point out? If not, we'll
I would just like, I apologize for being unfamiliar with the situation, or even the process here. But I believe you are right that it did say something about that. But again, I'm unfamiliar, I'm not a lawyer, but
No problem. That's okay. That's understandable. And you're not the first or the only person to miss that. So that's not a problem. We're glad to accommodate you. Okay? All right, if there's nothing further, then this case is hereby adjourned until November 22nd, 2019, and this concludes all of the cases that were assigned for hearing today and this case is hereby adjourned. Thank you.